Hi, it's me again. I'm back with another video. So, what I want to talk about today is a pretty heavy topic, but it's something that's been interesting for me for a really long time, and I wanted to talk about it. But this topic takes a lot of my emotional availability. So, anybody who knows me knows that I have been a fan of Megan Thee Stallion's for a long time, basically. I discovered her in 2016. It was on like a Facebook. I was at school, so I probably shouldn't have been on Facebook. But I was at school and I was on Facebook and I saw this video of her freestyle. It was like a clip from her freestyle from the Houston versus Dallas one. And I was like, oh yeah, this is the one. So I was like, oh my gosh, I love her. Like this is like my ideal everything, like obsessed. And over the years, like my fascination and like fandom grew for her more and more. And then I noticed a couple years ago there was like this big hate thing with like her incident. I'm not going to speak on it because it's like the results are the results. That is what it is. But it's been something that's bothered me for a really long time, is like noticing how people just keep defending abusers and predators. So this video, I'm going to title it "Stop Defending Abusers," because that's mainly like the big circle that everything falls in. So basically what I've noticed is recently there's a very famous person who I used to look up to as a kid, but like I became disillusioned with this person around the same time that I started liking Megan. And I was like, okay, this person's pretty problematic. I'm gonna say the name Nikki. Uh I don't I don't want smoke from her fans, but I just want to say this. Like the main thing that has been around and it's continuing and continuing and continuing is the problematic behavior. Like people, I've seen her fans say that you can't judge her for the people that she has around her, but I think that's a perfect example of how you judge people. Like basically you are the summation of those around you. So if you're surrounded by abusers and toxic people, that says something about you. That means you're either okay with that behavior or you don't see that behavior as problematic. Now, this is something that probably affects a lot of BIPOC people. Like your family has that one person or those multiple people who they're like, oh, you can't be around them alone, or you need to change your clothes if this person is coming over, and da 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 da. So it's like a very passive response that puts the onus on the person who could potentially be a victim or has already been victimized. And it's like the same situation with Megan. Like I listen to Hiss, I listen to Cobra, I listen to all of that. Like I stream her music pretty much every day. That's my girl. But like when I see that people have responded in certain ways, it's just like very interesting to me. And like there was already that dogpiling that happened all those years ago. And it like really like I had already deleted Twitter, but I went on there before you needed an account to even like peruse it. And I was like looking through the hashtags and seeing the response from people. And I was like, yeah, this is why I deleted Twitter. To shift all the blame and accuse someone of lying without any evidence. Like at that time, there was also a lot of YouTubers that I had to unfollow personally because they were like, oh, something isn't adding up, or this doesn't seem clean, or I think she's lying, or da da da. And I was like, coming from like another Black person, especially like another Black woman, I was like, whoa, this is like deep. Like people are really, completely on the side of the aggressor and the abuser once again, which is a lot about how sometimes Black women will see each other. Like the fact that a lot of people didn't believe her and people who did believe her and stood up and said something on a public platform and they got like burned at the stake. I was like, whoa, this is insane to me. This is like very, very scary. So this is the background, and this is like something that's been building up for me personally for a couple years, which is why I decided, finally just to, oop, I see something here. Finally to just bite the bullet and talk about it. So the main issue here with the defending of abusers comes from, I think, a lot of places of self-hate and self-doubt. Like a lot of times people don't believe themselves or they don't think that other people believe them. And it's easier to join in on a hate train than to think critically. Like there's the evidence that was released, there's the phone calls, the everything, but you will keep seeing people who keep trying to disprove or discredit the story. It's like, okay, it went through the legal system. The legal system can be corrupt. There are times when it's corrupt, but when you have this amount of evidence and these amount of statements, and only when things are outside of the courtroom do you suddenly have all these evidence, but you didn't have any evidence to bring in the courtroom, it says a lot. So it's like when she said like it's like a media campaign, and all the stuff that he's accusing her of doing, I think is stuff that he's doing, which is why he's projecting, like paying off the blogs and doing all this other stuff. Like no one believed her. No one believed her, in terms of like the hip hop community. So, to see people continuously like taking digs at that or making fun of like people who have passed, I think that that's very low. So, I'm just going to drop the whole Tory thing because we know what he's doing. We know how he's doing it. We know the history and the pressure and the biases that he can profiteer off of to make her life harder. We already know this. There's not really much to go in on that. People have had these think pieces and those thoughts. My thing, like, forget everything about him, is from the black women like Nikki, who, and even in some sort like Kelsey and all these other people who have gone on to like basically give this man a pass or like claim he's innocent or give him some type of, big ups. Like there's been a lot of like rappers and stuff. Like I don't really like male rappers. I don't really follow a lot of them. They're just not my cup of tea. Like when I was younger, I would listen to a couple, but like as I got older and I listened to what they were saying, I'm like, why would I listen to this? Like you're just talking about killing people and doing drugs, and I don't really relate to that. So it was like hard for me to maintain interest in that. But when it got to suddenly everybody stepping up and saying, "Oh, I support him," da 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 da, and then all these memes and stuff, it was just like very disappointing. I'm like, this is where we are still. Like I don't think we're ever gonna be able to move past this because this is like a generational curse at this point. Like the amount of time and effort that people have invested into maintaining this ruse of just like defending the most toxic behavior in our community and then blaming the people who are receiving that abuse is just like so shocking to me. So when the whole Nikki thing started, and I know people have already spoken on this, it was just like even more disappointing. I'm like, come on, sis, like you have this big platform, this huge legacy, and you're throwing it away for this dusty man. This like I can't take this guy seriously. Like when I saw that video of him like outside, like trying to beckon Offset or whoever into a fight, I'm like, you are at a very big age to still behaving like this. Like you've been convicted of murder before. You have been convicted of abuse and many other things. It's like, why are you so proud and so upcoming with like what you're doing? It's just like it's so disappointing to me and also like extremely sad. Like I don't want to keep saying like, but as you get older, you think that there'd be some maturity that has been brought to the table or some sincerity or some growth. But the way he's behaving and the way she's behaving, I see it's like people like the birds of the feather, they're flocking together. Like at first I was like, what do they have in common? Like even when I saw like their first photo, what they posted together, this is a couple years ago, and I saw like their body language. I know you shouldn't do body language analysis, but it was like I did it because I'm like, oh, this guy, I don't know, it was just something about that picture that just didn't seem right to me. But like as time has gone on, and I know there have been allegations of drug abuse and all this other stuff, that could be the case. Like, but my biggest fear is seeing her behavior and things like that. I'm like, is it something that's from his influence, right? Because we've seen like what has happened to the Britney Spears of the world, where people in her corner were like completely milking her. Like, forbid something like that happens to Nikki, but it's just like this. I was like, was there a prenup in place? Was there something in place? Because like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. So like from the feed, I have not read all of her stuff, but I have seen some of it, and I listened to maybe a couple snippets from her song, and I was just like, this is just not it. And even the live streams, like I've seen snippets of it on IG because I can't go through my Megan Thee Stallion tag in peace. Suddenly it's just inundated with freaking, but like unhinged rants is probably better. And it was just like so disappointing to me because I'm like, whoa, this behavior is problematic, it's questionable, like there's just a lot going on. And to see like some people with reason go, okay, this is not the person who I follow, this is not the person I'm a fan of, this is not the behavior that I want to support. And then to see the other end of that, which is the extreme where it's like, no, 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 I'm gonna defend her till I die and ride or die, da 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 da. I have never been a fan like that of anybody because that just um unhealthy and unbalanced to me. Like if Megan was to ever do something as toxic or extreme as what Nikki's doing right now, best believe I would not continue to support her because there's just like certain boundaries that you need to have in place for somebody who you look up to and you support. So I was just very disappointed with the fandom's response to her behavior. I'm like, come on, like y'all are out here doxing people, threatening people, getting, criminal records and getting kicked out of school for her, who's not going to reciprocate that at all. She doesn't know who you are. And honestly, she's not pro woman. Like the stuff that she's done, the stuff that she says, you can tell that she's not like there for other girls. Like, we understand that she had like a hard coming up. We understand that like, she had to go through the mud or whatever. But when you're elbowing your way to the top and you keep elbowing people who are trying to come up with you, that's a problem. Like, there, like Lotto, I don't. She said some stuff that I also don't like, but Lotto and Cardi B also some stuff that I don't like. I'm not really the biggest fan of Cardi B, but people who have called out the behavior and the tendencies and how it's always everybody against her, but she never does any wrong. It says a lot about the people in her corner. And that's something that I've talked about personally, like with my friends that I fear. Like, I have had friends like that before where everything I do, they just agree with it and go along with it. And it was like, not good for you, because no matter how mentally strong you are or how confident you are, like if you get people who are always in your corner and there's never any pushback and there's always 100% acceptance and like just 100% loyalty, it creates the worst in you. Like, you can really foster a monster inside of yourself. Speaking from personal experience, that has happened to me where I've had people who are just like complete yes men, and my behavior and my thought process, everything was just really toxic. I got like up here with the ego. I was like, oh, nobody can touch me. I'm here, here, here. And eventually people will start to resent you for that very same behavior that they egged on. So it's just like, it's not healthy to human nature. So I'm pretty sure she's done it before. She needs to do it again. Fire the whole team. Get everybody out of there. If you have to fire the husband, divorce him, something, like get these people out of here, because they're not really in your corner like that. Like, the rants that you're allowed to go on, the music, the quality that you're able to release, the trash, like things that you're saying, and there's not been anybody to say, maybe this isn't the one. Maybe we shouldn't post this. No, delete that. It says a lot. It says a lot. So that's all that I'm going to say on this situation. Just know that 100% on Megan's team. I don't understand how people could be on the other team, or people can be impartial and say that they don't take a side because they're not sure. It says a lot. It really does. So moving on. How can we stop defending abusers? Like, what can be done? What can be said? What can we do to basically change the social zeitgeist? My biggest issue here has been how, over the years, like, we're basically socialized into this from very, okay. So it cut off. Basically, what I was saying is, when we get to this point, like as a society, and we've been like grooming our children to basically give abusers a pass and predators a pass and toxic people a pass, like as they get older, they're going to obviously be more male identified, more predator identified, and give that type of behavior a pass. And that is something that I've noticed with my own family, with family of friends, with family of, like, in general, like, especially where I'm from, like there are a lot of abusers in the city that I'm from. And it was just like so shocking to me to see how many of those people got a pass in their behavior. Like, there was a lot of abuse going on in circles that I saw, and I would just like, okay, I can't come around these people. I don't want to see this. I don't want to be around this. And it was just like so sad to me. Like, the amount of Tyler Perry movies where I saw growing up, and they all pretty much have the same punchline. Like, oh, there's abusers, there's these type of people. And basically it was like vilifying the women, which is like, they're a product of their environment. But yeah, it's still, we shouldn't excuse it. But I got tired of seeing like the women only get vilified when it's the men who are doing the action. And basically, I would see in the movie every single time, oh, she's doing this to keep her man. She'll do anything to keep her man. She'll do anything, da da da, even if it means sacrificing her own child. And I was like, why is this message getting pushed so much? Like, what is a benefit here? Like, this type of behavior, like, obviously it's not good. It's obviously very toxic and very abusive. But why do we keep pushing the onus on just one party when this is like a cultural poison? Like, this is like something that has been passed down generation to generation. Like, the way that I think of it, because I know where it came from. Like, before, like, we had slavery, da da da. Obviously, we had slavery in America. After that point, when Jim Crow became a thing, women still really didn't have the right to vote. Women didn't have the right to do a lot of stuff, so they had to be fully dependent on a man. Like, there was no divorce, there was no leaving. So he could cheat, he could abuse, he could do everything, and he got away with it because, like, if you left him, you were kind of screwed. And I feel like people have brought that generational trauma down and down and down. Like, oh, I'll do anything to keep my man. So it's like we've kind of developed those survival tactics to say, okay, just don't speak up about it. Okay, just don't question it. Oh, he did something bad. You need to side by him, like 10 toes down beside this man, like da 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 da. And to see that in the modern day is just like, in the most obvious way. It's like super disappointing because it's like, why are we still here? We know where this is coming from. Why hasn't this type of behavior been fixed? Why haven't we challenged or pushed back on these type of toxic people? So to see people on a very big platform like siding with abusers, like it was the same thing with a couple years ago, the R. Kelly fans, where they were like trying to give him a pass, giving him excuses, and like, oh, we're gonna stand beside him and streaming his music and doing all that other stuff, make him go viral, like all that other stuff. It was crazy, and I'm just like, but we know like this man has this past, we know that he's done these things, and you guys will still just sit here and defend him is so unhinged. It's like, for what reason? Like, oh yeah, like you act like he won't do the same thing to you given the chance. Like, what is the goal here? um that was like very disappointing too. So every time like something like this comes up in the culture or is pushed to the forefront, to see that it keeps repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating, I'm just like, why? Like, we learned from before what the result of this will be. Even Bill Cosby, like with the Bill Cosby thing, like people are like, "Oh no, I'm sticking beside him. This is my like childhood." Like, you have to be able to recognize, like, okay, maybe his show was iconic. Maybe it did help you grow up. Maybe it did teach you life values. But that doesn't give him a pass for the behavior that he's had and the guilt that he should be responsible for. It was just very, very annoying to me, very sad. So to see the same thing just keep happening, it's like every year there's like a big event. Like, no one was out here 10 toes down defending Harvey Weinstein. No one was out here 10 toes down defending Epstein. So it's like, why, like in this community specifically, do we keep defending abusers? Like, you have got to stop, because eventually, if you keep pushing this behavior, if you keep defending this behavior, eventually you're going to have a daughter. Same thing for the men. Eventually you're going to have a daughter, and then you're going to have to be worried, because that 1 in 4 stat is very real. That 1 in 4 stat is very real. There's people I know, you know, personally, I know. So it's like, when you keep defending this type of behavior and you keep giving this type of stuff a pass and excusing it and defending it and passing it and defending it and passing it, eventually you're going to have a little girl. And then you're going to have to wonder, is the person I married going to do something to this child? Like, I've personally heard people tell me that they're grateful that Nikki had a son, because they fear that if she had a daughter, she'll be the type of mother that they had. And that's not something you want to hear as an adult. That's not something that you want to get tacked onto. That's not something that you should stand like proud in. Like, when your brother's an abuser, your husband's an abuser, you've collaborated with abusers and you defend them, it says a lot about your character. And it's very concerning, because like, as someone like her who has come out and said that she was a domestic violence survivor, her mother, domestic violence survivor, to make fun of somebody about that, I just don't understand where the disconnect is. It's like so concerning to me that like these Black women will stand on this podium and do this and say this and defend this. Like, when those letters came out for people who defended the abuser, every time it happens, I'm like, whoa. So this just shows that like, either you don't value women in your life, you don't value little girls in your life, or you don't value yourself. And that says a lot. What type of self-hate demons are you battling to be okay with being surrounded by people who will hurt you? How can you defend that behavior? And I know like domestic violence is very intimate. You cannot blame the survivor for how they cope or how they deal with stuff, but to come out of that and to say like, this is wrong, I don't support this, and then a couple years later be on the opposite side of that, what happened here? That's what my biggest concern is. Like, there has to be some extraneous factor. Maybe there's something going on behind the scenes. I don't want to be here speculating and armchair diagnosing. That's not my job. But what concerns me is that this keeps happening. It keeps happening. We see people like oh my gosh, I'll go into this. One of my biggest, like my first love, I'm going to be honest. My first love, like Kelly Rowland, loved her. She was like my fave before Megan was my fave. I was like deep in the sauce of supporting her. Destiny's Child, listen to it. Every song, listen to it. Subscribe to the channel. Every song, liked. Everything followed, liked. I do the same thing. But it was like, when she came out and supported and defended Chris Brown, saying, "We forgive you, Chris." Who is we? You have to be speaking like French. We, yes, yes. Because you can't talk about us as a collective. Like, what is there to forgive? He has done nothing to warrant him being like a forgiver. He is a serial abuser. He has a long rap sheet. Look it up. Pretty much every intimate partner he's been physical with. So you can't say it was a one-time mistake or he was a child. This has continued, especially when he's got that. Yeah. So when I was like so disappointed. So like that's why I'm saying, like, if Megan does the same thing, I don't want to speak that onto her. You know, I love her now, but if she was to do the same thing as Kelly Rowland, I'd step back. You didn't see me 10 toes down defending Kelly Rowland, like, oh, she didn't mean that. You know, what she meant was this, or oh, so what, she said this. I support her. No, you cannot be in that mindset because it just takes you somewhere super duper toxic, somewhere super toxic. That's all it's going to take you to is the worst place and the worst version of yourself, because you're sitting up here knowing that what somebody's doing is wrong and you're creating a dissonance with it, and that's not good. It's beyond concerning. It's beyond concerning because I've met people, and this is when I was a kid, so I can't hold this over them, but I was told, like, as a kid by other children, we were having conversations and I was like saying whose like side I was on. I was like, okay, I support Rihanna. And to hear people giving this boy a pass just because he's cute, they're like, oh, I didn't find him attractive. I'm going to be honest. The signs were always there that I was not straight. But basically, they were like, oh, look at him, though. Like, he's so innocent. He's so young. Like, he's so sexy. Like, look how attractive he is. It was basically like pretty privilege, I guess. They're like, no, there's no way he did this. And even if he did, I'm standing beside him. I have heard people, we were children, though, you know, under 18. But from the time that I was in elementary school up until high school, I heard this as an excuse. Well, he's so fine and he's so attractive that I'd let him do that to me. To be in that type of mindset is so concerning. It's so scary. But it's continuing and continuing and continuing and continuing. And that's how this thing gets perpetuated. Maybe they heard their mother say that or their grandmother say it, and then they start saying it, and then they start believing it. And each generation, it gets worse and worse and worse. Like, at one point, domestic abuse, physical stuff, that was like a thing that was handled privately, which is wrong. This should be put out publicly. People should be shamed for those type of actions that they're committing. But if we're making it public, and there's so many cases in our culture, but like to see, you know, every single generation, there's like that example of a big popular couple that's domestically violent. Before, it was like a private, intimate house matter. That's what I was saying, right? Private, intimate in your house. And it was still bad. It was still bad. They were like, you know, you don't talk about this. And they put the onus on the woman, covered up with makeup, put on a hat, put on shades, which is still really fucked up. But afterwards, it became like a public spectacle. So people would, the paparazzi, which I don't support, I think, like, it's a bane on society. Like, we just know too much about celebrities. I wish that we could go back to the point in the past where a celebrity had their post once a year, a couple interviews, like maybe 3 times a year, release one album every 2 years, and that's all you heard from them. They were just not a person, they were just a spectacle, basically. Sometimes I wish that we could revert to that because we know too much now. But what I was saying, now that it's become public, the amount of excuses and passes that people have created are just unhinged, concerning, and sometimes revealing. Like, people will make posts that kind of reveal that they would also be an abuser. Like, when people were defending certain celebrities, I'm not going to say names, but we know there's like a long list. I'll probably put pictures up if I really care about these men. But I don't really care about these men. But you can look it up. Just Google, like, men and their mugshots for when they abuse their partners. And you will see people, like, just deriding fully. Oh, yeah, support him. Yep. And they say, self-report. Oh, I used to do this with my ex. Okay. And they say, oh, I did this with my intimate partner. We're fine. Everything is okay. This is okay. That's okay. And if we're at that point as a society where people are openly sharing that they're abusers and there's no repercussions for that, I'm scared for the future. Like, our generation is already so open and so proud about the toxic dynamics. Like, I remember when I was in high school and I used to love couple channels. I used to subscribe to them. I subscribed to family channels. It was like a great form of escapism. But like, as I got older and I realized the truth behind those channels and what it takes to make those channels, I was like, okay, so this is just child abuse. I'm not interested. I don't want to support this anymore. But, you know, once again, the more that comes out, the more that we see, the more people will make excuses for it because people love defending their faiths. And I've talked about this before in other videos, and it always makes me sad. It's like such a disappointing, frustrating thing that like we can just continue to see people who are abusive, who are toxic, and we just keep saying, oh, well, it's okay because da 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 da. Oh, it's okay because da 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 da. Over and over and over and over and over again. It's just like, come on, bro. At what point are we going to say, all right, this is not cute? As a society, as a culture, we need to move past this. Like, this behavior just, it's not it. It's really not. Like, this topic is like so draining to me because I feel like it should be common sense to just say this person is wrong, they're an abuser, done. But for some reason, as a society, we can't get there. People will continue to make excuses, continue to give passes, and continue to distance themselves or distance that person. It just exhausts me to no end. I'm just like, why are we here? What is the point? Like, until when are we going to say, okay, that's enough, or you need to cut this off here? When is the boundary? Like, when they come into your house and do something to you? I don't. It's just so frustrating to me because I've known many abusers in my life. There are so many predators that I've known. And when I talked about them or called them out, people looked at me like I was the crazy one or shifted the blame to me as a child. So, like, as an adult, when I see this type of behavior, I'm just like, some of y'all really don't need to have kids. Some of y'all really don't need to be in relationships. Some of y'all don't need to, like, even be around abusers because y'all will be the type of people who will lead the men to the victims. And that concerns me. It genuinely does. So even with this popular case that's being talked about right now, it's been being talked about for a while. To see that there is such a strong divide, it concerns me. So for me, like, what benefit would she have to lying? Because she didn't even want to talk about it is the main thing that bothers me. She was pushed into it because he kept lying on her. She was willing to lie for him and not say anything. He is the one who tried to shift the blame onto her and make up these cases. And that's ultimately what got him in trouble. So for people to blame her and say it's her fault, I want to know what type of mental gymnastics you're doing. Even people who doubted her from the jump, I'm just like, why doubt her? Why? What would she lie about? Like, why would anybody lie about that? It just, it disappoints me to no end. So that's pretty much all I have to say about this. I'm going to quickly edit this together. I got somewhere to go. I'm going to go out. So I just need to de-stress. So just go ahead, leave a comment, leave a like, do whatever you want. No pressure. We can talk more about this. If you're a barb, leave me alone. Leave me alone. I'm minding my business. Like, do better. If you're a hottie, hello. Speak your piece, speak your mind, whatever. I'm gonna go, so I'm gonna say peace. See you next time. Bye. Jeez, man.